Welcome to the Cyber Business Podcast, where we feature top founders and entrepreneurs and share their inspiring stories. Now, let's get started with the show.
Matthew Connor here, host of the Cyber Business Podcast. Today, we're joined by Dr. Ken Knapton, CIO at Win Brands. Ken, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. Glad to be here.
And maybe I should have introduced you as Dr. Ken, because that's, the actor, because I love it.
It's all good. Yeah.
All right. And before we get too far in, a quick word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Cyberlinks. That's cyberlynx.com. Do you know if a hacker's in your system? Most people and most companies don't until it's too late and the hacker's already done damage. A hacker's job is to bypass your security, so companies need a way of knowing when someone's gotten past theirs. That's where Cyberlinks comes in. We partner with the best cybersecurity companies in the world to be able to provide our clients with the best solutions at the best prices. So whether it's managed SIM, SOC, EDR, MDR, XDR, you name it, we'll help you find the right solution at the right price. Find out more at cyberlinks.com. That's cyberlynx.com. And now back to our show. Dr. Ken, for those who aren't familiar, can you tell us about Win Brands and your role there as CIO?
You bet. So Win Brands is probably one of the companies that nobody's ever heard of, because it's Win Brands is the parent company of Costa Vida, Fresh Mexican Grill, and FatCats Family Entertainment. So those two brands have been around for about 20 years. They were started by the same two entrepreneurs, but those two companies have grown up completely independently. Their own presidents, their own IT departments, their own HR, everything. So just a little bit about each of those companies. Costa Vida, as I said, Fresh Mexican Grill. It's a restaurant, a quick serve restaurant here based in Utah. In multiple states, we have just under 100 restaurants. Wow. So it's a very popular Mexican restaurant. FatCats Entertainment is a bit of a different beast. So FatCats started out as a bowling alley, bowling lane, right here in beautiful Provo, Utah. But since has kind of evolved into this family entertainment center. And so it's a 70,000 square foot building, cinema, bowling, arcade, mini golf, and of course, delicious food. So we have nine locations of FatCats around multiple states as well. So these two companies, as you can imagine, vastly different, very different entities, a restaurant and really a cinema, arcade, bowling business. But about, I would say a year and a half or so ago, the owners started considering how they can gain more efficiencies, as everyone is always, looking for, and from a business perspective. And so they started thinking about, how do we find these commonalities, these synergies, these economies of scale between the two entities? And that's when they brought me on, along with a couple of other C-suite executives, to help kind of bridge that gap and bring the two together from a shared services perspective. And so that's my role as CIO, is to help kind of bring the back-end services into alignment so that we can find those economies of scale and allow those two companies, those two brands, to continue to grow and do what they do.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
No, I love it. Now, and also, I mean, really cool how very, disparate, very different, those two are. And so bringing those together, is there, I'm kind of curious, obviously very different technology when you're talking about, putt-putt and bowling alleys versus, the restaurant. And then obviously, I mean, a back office, I'm sure pretty much the same on both ends. But I suppose that makes for an interesting time for you. Is it, what was that like?
Yeah, it's fascinating, actually. So the two companies are both, they're both relatively small. At least, I've been at much larger entities before. This is one of the smallest companies that I've worked at for a long time. Costa Vida, from a number of employees perspective, revenue perspective, is a little bit bigger than FatCats. So Costa Vida then is a little bit more mature. from the IT perspective and from some of the other processes, procedures perspective. FatCats really still kind of scrappy, young, even though they're both 20 years old, right? There's FatCats is just a little bit more kind of, entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
And so coming into the organization, I sat down with the IT folks at both, and both companies were very heavily outsourced. They relied on MSPs to provide most of the services for them. They had a couple of internal IT folks, but they each had different MSPs,
Yeah.
right? And so they had some commonality in things like the back office. They were both on Office 365, but they had their own instance. So I sat down with the IT folks and I said, look, you guys have been hearing about this initiative for 6 months or so before I came on. As you guys have been thinking about this, where do you think these commonalities are? And both of them said, well, there aren't any. We
Great
just we
answer.
can't. Yeah, we just there. And I said, well, wait a minute, aren't you both on Office 365? Well, yeah, but it's so different. And aren't you both using the same, kind of the financial system? Yeah, but it's totally different. And so there were a lot of commonalities, but they didn't recognize how they could pull them together because they thought, oh, we operate so differently.
Yeah.
And then you get to the point where there really are some differences, right? So you look at the point of sale in Costa Vida is we use Toast, great product. It works super well. But that's pretty much the core of our business in Costa Vida.
Yep.
And FatCats, there is no single POS
Yeah.
that will do cinema, arcade, bowling, right? So we have multiple POS systems, point of sale systems. I guess
Yeah.
that's redundant.
ATM
We're
machine. Yeah.
multiple
Right.
POSs. Yeah, that's
Yep.
right.
That's fine.
Uh, so we get to that level then of these things that are different, but can we still find some commonalities? How do we bring the back end data together? So that's where I really started. I started on, first of all, the back office services. We've now combined our O365 environment. We're running on one environment now, one tenant. We've started looking from a data perspective, bringing the data from both environments into the same data warehouse so that we can
Nice.
start looking holistically. So we start with that low-hanging fruit.
Nice.
But we're now getting to, I've only been here since December. So I'm coming up on, what is that, 8, 9 months now.
Yeah.
So we've done that. Now we're starting to look more at some of these things that are different. How do we make the processes, the procedures, the best practices? How do we bring commonality there to provide services, but still have disparate systems?
Yeah.
Right. So it's really a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic, and I love the story of the two MSPs. Obviously, job security.
Yeah.
Like, no, we're two different. We each need to keep doing what we're doing. What are you talking about? So,
That's
how did
right.
that end
That's
up?
right.
Did you end up keeping both MSPs? And they, or did you merge into one? Did you choose one? How did it go?
Yeah, so from the MSP perspective, we did select one of them, and we're in the process of migrating all of their services over to the other. So we have one MSP now going forward. The next, and we're right on the tail end of getting all of their services deployed out to the endpoints and all that. So now they have control over the systems. Now the next thing is we actually moved into this building together. So when I said the companies grew up independently, they were literally across the highway from each other. One was in a building over here, the other was in a building on the other side of the highway. Just before they brought me on, like literally maybe 2 months before I came on, we moved into the same building,
Nice.
but they set up their own networks.
Of
They
course.
each have, yeah, they each have their own firewalls, their own networks, their own APs. I mean, and so now we've got to the one MSP. Now the next thing I'm tasking that MSP with is let's get us all in the same network. Let's get in the same
Yep,
environment. Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah. It's
Um,
fun.
that is good stuff. Now,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, you've written a book.
I have. Yes. So it came out last year. I just happen to have a copy of it right here. It's called Unveiling Tech Debt. So I wrote this last year. And just to give you a quick synopsis there, the company I was working for prior to coming here,
Excuse me.
um, that company had a significant difficulty keeping up with their competition. They had trouble getting the things done that they wanted to from a strategic perspective. And the CEO would come to me and say, "Hey, I just went to this conference. I talked to some of our competitors. I saw that they're doing this. Let's go do that." And I had to find a way to explain to him, well, we can't do that right now because of these technical challenges that we have in our environment. So in that company, everybody talked about tech debt. They all, oh, we have so much tech debt. It's holding us back. We can't do anything. And they were right. But as I went around and talked to each of my peers to find out, well, what does that mean to you? When you tell me that we have tech debt, what does that mean?
Yeah, thank you.
They
Yeah.
all had a completely different answer, right? They all said, "Oh, well, it means this," or, "Well, okay, that's very different. We weren't talking the same language," right? So the purpose of the book was I'm just telling a lot of stories about my 30 years in the CIO seat and the various things that I've seen throughout the years from a tech debt perspective. But it's really to kind of create a single definition. So for me, tech debt is anything within your tech stack that is holding you back from achieving your strategic goals. It's not custom software development only, right? It's anything.
Yeah.
So in this company, we had a Salesforce implementation. Salesforce is a great product, but in this company, they had configured the solution. They configured some workflows in Salesforce that were restrictive and prohibitive, that did not allow us to then go and do these other things we wanted to. In order to add this capability, we had to go back and rewrite some of this custom code that we'd written. And again, the CEO was saying, "Well, we're on Salesforce. Everybody that I know uses Salesforce. They can just do stuff. Let's go do stuff." Like, well,
Yeah.
we have to go undo some stuff first, right?
Yeah.
So again, I'm taking a little bit longer here to explain it, but the bottom
No.
line is, I came up with a way to measure and manage your tech debt in terms of tech debt leverage. So now you can assess your entire tech stack, and you can come up to a single number, and you can go to your CFO or your CEO and say, "We are 40% leveraged from a tech debt perspective. And in order to meet our goals, we've got to be 20% leveraged," right? Because that's where we have to, that's where we need to be in order to achieve what you're asking me to do as the CIO. And so that just creates a common language now, because every CEO and every CFO understands financial debt leverage,
Yeah.
right? They know that term. And so this book just helps kind of create that common language. So that's the intro to the book.
It's really interesting. Can you walk us through that a little bit? I mean, I don't think, when you hear 20 or 40%, leverage when it comes to tech debt,
Yeah.
it it seems kind of nebulous. Like, how do you come up with that? How does that work? Can you kind of walk us through it? Explain what that really, and I'm sure, not trying to ask you to tell us the whole book, but what's the idea here? How do you get to those kinds of numbers that actually make sense?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it took a little while to get there, because I wanted to find a way to measure this nebulous thing called tech debt, right? Because you can't improve something unless you can measure it.
Right.
And so I came up with certain categories, things like, how supportable is this particular technology? And so you think in terms of each element of your tech stack, and you could talk about Salesforce as an element. You could talk about O365 as an element. You could also dig deeper into that if you wanted to, and say, well, this database that's sitting behind these systems is what we're going to measure. So the first thing you have to do is figure out, from your tech stack perspective, how detailed do you want to be in measuring the amount of tech debt? So you make that decision, and then there are certain criteria. Like I said, one of them is the supportability. How often do you get phone calls about this? How often is your team rebooting that server or restarting that service? So there's that aspect of it. There's the aspect of how fragile is it, right? Is it stable? Is it fragile? So how hard is it to support is one thing, but how often does it go down, or do you lose connectivity, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Um, there's the aspect of span. Is this used by one team, one department, or is it across your whole enterprise? So each of these, and there's a few more categories, but you take each of those and they're all laid out in the book. I don't hold any of it back; it's not proprietary. Um, but you go through those specific categories, and you measure each of them on a scale of 0 to 5.
Okay.
And so you calculate how supportable is it, how and end of life is another one. So you'd say this particular thing, is there an end of life in 2 years? Is it 5 years? Is it, forever? Like what's the end of life for this particular technology? And that might be something that's defined by the vendor. It also might be something that's defined by the company to say, look, for contractual reasons, we want to get rid of this particular solution. And so the lifespan for us is the next year. We have to have it out of our environment before the contract renews. So you determine what's the lifespan of this thing. One quick example on that one. I think most of your listeners will probably be familiar with the fairly recent changes from a VMware perspective, right? So, and I'm not calling out VMware or Broadcom specifically. I'm just using them as an example, right? VMware is very ingrained in your environment. It's a key component. You're not even thinking about it. It just works. And then, because of an acquisition, because of repricing, because of whatever happens, right? All of a sudden you realize, well, we have to do something different because we can't afford this anymore because the pricing has changed. Or again, the vendor might decide, hey, it's going to be end of life.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever that is, you figure out, hey, from a lifespan perspective, this is how, we're going to change the scoring of this particular element. And that then changes the tech debt leverage, right? VMware was not tech debt before. It was a key component. It was part of our long-term strategy. It was working. All of a sudden, pricing changes. We can't afford it. Now this is tech debt. We have to stop doing other things because we have to go change this core piece of our tech foundation, right? So
Right.
that's how you go about it. So you measure all those, and then the algorithm that I've come up with takes each of those measurements, normalizes those numbers, and gives you a percent of tech debt. And the percent is really calculated based on the things that you're measuring. So if you measure your entire tech stack, then you know that this particular element of your tech stack is X percent of the overall tech debt. Right? So now you can take all of those and normalize all those numbers to come down to the one single number that says this is how leveraged we are from a tech debt perspective.
And if you're 100% leveraged, what would that mean?
100% leverage would mean that your team is constantly putting out fires, that your systems are going down all the time, that you're not able to build new stuff because you're so busy focusing on keeping what you have running,
Right.
right? And replacing stuff because they're going to be end of life, or so you're focusing so much on keeping the lights on, you don't have any time at all. If you're 100% leveraged, you have no time at all for building the new stuff, for creating new features, for innovating, for bringing in new capabilities to support your company goals. You're just literally keeping the lights on, and it's all hands on deck doing that.
Makes sense. And what's a
Yeah.
healthy, what's a healthy number, right?
Yeah. So
Obviously, zero is probably not possible. So where's healthy?
yeah, that's a great question. And that is the key question. I don't have an answer for everyone just to say this is what it should be. I will tell you, in our in the I've implemented this at multiple organizations. The organizations where I have done this, 20% is about that right number. Now, every company needs to decide what's the right number for them. But like you said, zero is just not realistic.
Right.
And it's not realistic because even if let's say you're a startup and you're a cloud first startup, and you go and you do everything in the cloud. So you say, we don't have any tech debt because we're all SaaS. Somebody else is dealing with all of our stuff, right? It's just like driving a car off the lot. As soon as you drive it off, it starts to depreciate. As soon as you implement a solution, whether it's on-prem or cloud, there's another version coming. And being able to step away from what you're doing and upgrade to that version, that's tech debt.
Yeah.
And that's the other key thing that's one of the key concepts I bring out in the book is tech debt itself is not necessarily bad.
Mm-hmm.
People always think of tech debt as a negative thing, but trying to get to zero is just not realistic. And it would be putting way too much focus on your tech systems, your tech stack, rather than your strategy.
Right.
So having some tech debt is fine. Don't try to get to zero.
Yeah.
You shouldn't. And you can even say, you know what? In order to hit this particular market window, we need to get this thing out into production. We need to start selling this particular thing. We're going to make a few decisions that maybe we're going to implement something that's not quite as scalable as we want it to be, but we're going to be able to hit that window. You've created tech debt because as soon as you get that into the public and it starts selling, you have to go back and build the scalability into it before people start needing that scalability, right? So that's tech debt that you're dealing with. But again, as long as you plan for that and you know that, and you recognize that you're going to go and do this and you actually do it, then it's not a bad thing. It's when you create tech debt and you don't go back and fix it that it becomes bad. Right.
Yeah. I mean, makes sense. I mean, it's kind of like, it's just like financial debt in many regards, in that some people, take the view that no, debt is bad. Obviously, not all debt is bad. Some is better than others. And it can, I suppose the difference would be you could operate your business completely debt free. When it comes to financial debt, that does exist. It's totally possible. You don't have to leverage debt to get ahead, but you do have to leverage some amount of tech debt in order to exist and grow. Tech wise, it's just it's impossible to do it otherwise, right?
Exactly. Yep. That's spot on.
Yeah. All right. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
Yeah, it's
looking
fun stuff.
forward to reading that. I mean,
Yeah.
that's fascinating. So, have you found that this then becomes an easy way of communicating, um, you know, financial needs on the tech side of things to to the rest of the C-suite?
Oh, for sure. So one of the things that it really helps with it, again, right now, without this kind of a model, you're speaking in nebulous terms.
Yeah.
Right. I'd walk into a boardroom and talk about what's happening from a security perspective, right? Tech debt can expand your attack surface. And so we're talking about these things from the background, right? That nobody really cares about. This is what we do to keep the lights on. And often the answer was, "Oh, Ken, we're so glad you're here. Go take care of that." Right? You go do that and let us know when it's done.
Uh-huh. Right.
It doesn't work that way, right? I need budget. I need money. I need funds. And we need to stop doing this strategic thing because we have to go do this. We have to plug this hole. And so what this has allowed me to do is to be able to put in front of the executives a very clear visual that says, look, in this particular area, we are 70% leveraged. And this is why you, Mr. or Mrs. Marketing VP, or Mr. or Mrs. CFO, this is why you're not getting what you want from my team, because they're spending all their time dealing with this 70-80% tech debt leverage.
Yeah.
So let's reprioritize a little bit. Let's get a little bit of funds set aside for this. Let me go fix this problem. And then we'll be able to do what you want to do. And it's made those conversations much easier.
I mean, it makes sense because when you're, the day-to-day operations of, on the IT side, people can, you can measure it a number of ways, but at the end of the day, there's only so much time in the day. And when people are stressed and spread thin, it's like how, a lot of times without having this sort of metric and vocabulary to be able to say, hey, look, we can't do these things. It sounds more like whining, like, look, my
Right.
team's already spread
Right.
so thin. Great. We'll spread them a little thinner because
Yeah,
we really need you to kind of buckle down and get this done for us. Can't you help us out, Ken? Like, right? And it's like,
yeah,
I'd love to, but we're just spread so thin. Well, stop giving me excuses and start giving me solutions. And
yeah.
that's what it sounds like to people
Hmm.
when you're just like, well, we're already spread too thin to take on another project. We can't really, why, right? Oh, so you need more people? Well, kind of, but not really. And so it just doesn't quite add up without this, this kind of metric to, clearly explain how people, why it is you can't get things done or you can't add anything to the IT plate.
Yeah, you're spot on. That's exactly what it does. It sounds like complaining, and you know, CEOs, CFOs, other executives, they have no idea when a report shows up in their inbox every morning. They have no idea that some guy or woman came in 6 o'clock in the morning, kicked this server, pulled out this report from here, fixed this data, pulled it together, and then made sure that this thing emailed the report to them, right? That's all of that manual work is because of tech debt. And often they don't see the mice running on the wheels behind the scenes, right? And that's part of one of the measurements of tech debt is how much effort, how much manual work is the IT team putting in to keep this particular thing doing what it does, that everybody else just sees the output,
Yeah.
right? So then when I as the CIO sit down and say, hey, things are a mess, the executive team are like, no, everything's great.
Everything's working great.
we're
Yeah.
we're getting our reports.
Yep.
Yeah, why can't you just do more, right?
Yep.
So this helps quantify that.
I love it. No,
Yeah,
I gotta ask, as you start plugging in AI into things, right? And you talk about somebody coming in,
yeah,
getting the server, producing it. Okay, cool.
yeah.
That naturally you think, well, let's, how can we make this more efficient? We add AI, AI helps, speed that along. How do you see this playing out, one, with you, and two, in terms of tech debt? Is it one of these things that kind of clearly doesn't get rid of it completely? I so I've got my own thoughts, but I'm curious, how do you see this? How does this play out?
Yeah, it's almost like it's almost like you've already read the book because I have a whole, and I mean, as you know, my background, my passion, my doctorate is in big data. I have a whole chapter in the book dedicated to data as tech debt, specifically related to exactly what you're talking about.
Love it.
Because one of the biggest challenges right now with companies trying to implement AI, they want to go and find these great AI solutions and plug them in to their data, right? Because AI is fine, but it's not really useful for a company until it's looking at your own data, right? That's when we can look over, provide customer service solutions based on our process procedures. They can analyze our sales based on our data. So really, it's those RAG solutions. It's tying AI into your own data that that really creates that capability that's going to allow you to leverage AI for your business. The problem is most companies don't have clean data. They don't really know what their single source of truth is for any specific data set. They have data hoarding, right? And they have data sprawl, different versions, different copies of information that the sales team has their data, the finance team has theirs, that they're looking at the same piece of information, but looking at it differently. So which one should the AI consider,
Yep.
right? And so data itself can be tech debt for that very reason. You'd say, look, we've got this brand new great AI solution. We want to implement that solution here. And if you had perfect data, you could just take it, plug it in, and away you go. But because of decisions that have made in the past, because someone decided to hoard some data, because people haven't maintained it over time, then when you plug it in, you just get garbage. So the data itself is tech debt holding you back from being able to leverage this new capability.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's really cool. It's funny because when you people think about AI, there's some really cool use cases, right? Where I think you look at it, let's stick on the IT and the security side. When you
Sure.
see it implemented and let's take Sentinel-1 or CrowdStrike, for instance, on that
Yeah.
endpoint detection response, super cool to be able to then be able to see what's going on a device and make decisions faster and be able to analyze very quickly using AI. I
Yeah.
think one of my favorites is on the email security side with something like Darktrace. Freaking fantastic. It makes so much sense. And it's like, how's this not like the only thing that anybody's using, where it's looking at all your email when something comes in, like clearly this is a scam. Boom, let me take care of it. Oh, Ken doesn't normally email like this. This is clearly his email's been hacked. He doesn't email at these times, and this is not his voice, right? And so obviously like great uses of being able to use artificial intelligence in a way that just plugs in beautifully with a solution. Got it. And it amplifies it. And then when you look at AI when it comes to the people and data, well, it becomes a little different. You can't just necessarily plug it in, right? You can't necessarily. I think it's going to be really interesting. This, we're now in that age of agentic AI and being able to, I don't know, the trust thing. Like I love technology. Like I love the
Mhm.
new stuff when there's new anything. Yay, I'm first in line. Get the update. Drives my wife crazy. She's like, they changed my interface on my iPhone. Grr, right? I'm like,
Yep.
yay, something new to learn, right? Whereas other people are hating it. But I think when it comes to AI and the agentic stuff, I'm even like, I think building up the confidence and the trust in it to be able to make these decisions and execute. I think that's a really interesting one that I don't know. Even for me where I'm kind of I enjoy being on the leading edge of things and seeing where we're at. Like I'll let the car drive itself. I love it. Wife, not so much.
Right.
But when
Yep.
it comes to like the business processes and decisions and agentic AI in like, even for a person buying plane tickets and stuff like spending your money like really? Like that's next level. So anyway, I get to a point here, but I mean, my question to you is, where do you see like agentic AI coming in and playing a role in like your business?
Yeah. So, I mean, this is we can spend an hour on this topic, right?
Yeah.
This is a fun topic. So, AI, obviously everybody's talking about it, everybody's using it, everybody's trying to figure out how to implement it. The first thing I would say, whenever I talk about AI, a lot of companies are going about this the wrong way. The CEO or the CFO or whomever is coming back to the IT team and saying, "We got to use AI. Go figure out where." That's backwards,
Right.
right? What we need
Yep.
to do is say, here are some business problems.
Yes.
Where can AI help us with those business problems, right?
Yeah.
The AI right now, I think, is a solution looking for a problem in a lot of
Mhm.
cases.
Yes.
So we need to flip that around. So at Costa Vida, we're looking at AI in several areas. Excuse me. So some of the more mundane things, excuse me, some of the more mundane areas we're looking at are things like um, can it help us from a scheduling perspective when we're scheduling employees? Typically, a GM will pull up the schedule from last week, they'll just copy it to this week, and then who's got PTO, who's needs, who's made a request, and we'll shuffle things around, and they kind of keep the same schedule. Well, there are peaks and valleys, and there are, local football games where we're going to see more traffic that night. There's weather patterns that affect when people come into our store and when they don't. So if we can start using AI to go out and look and say, hey, there's a big storm coming, it's going to hit on Thursday. Maybe we don't need 5 people. Maybe we can do with 4, right, on that night. Or, hey, the local football game, they moved their normal night. For whatever reason, you better staff up that night. So AI can kind of help us with those peaks and valleys
Right.
and help us to get better staffing, right? So that's one of the more mundane things. We're also looking at AI from one of the big challenges in the restaurant industry in general is missing and incorrect. Right? Someone comes to the drive-through and we hand them the bag, they drive off, and then they realize that we forgot their extra salsa. or we forgot the whatever. And so we have visualization now that we're using through AI to look and see what's on the menu and the POS, not the menu, what's on the receipt and the
Uh-huh.
POS, what's going into the bag, right? And it can automatically say, hey, wait, you forgot this, right? So there's some
Cool.
really cool things that we're doing with AI. We're also looking at it from a just a generative AI kind of a RAG solution perspective to be able to talk to our data. I'm going to go visit this particular store. Tell me over the last 6 months what's happened with sales. What do I need to look at? What should I be talking to the GM about when I go to that particular store? And it'll go back and figure all that out, look at the sales and all that, look at the cleanliness of the store and everything. So there's lots of ways for AI, I think, to help us out. Back to your initial question, though, one of the big challenges, I think, with specifically agentic AI and with using AI to help make business decisions is the machine bias.
Hmm.
We have to be extremely careful of the machine bias because if something comes out of an AI, if it spits out this particular recommendation, people tend to give more weight to that
True.
because it came from AI.
Yep.
That's very dangerous. Everything that comes out of an AI, we still have to put our own brain, it has to pass the sniff test.
Yep.
We have to analyze it, think about it. We can't just let AI do the thinking. It's extremely powerful, and it can shine light in areas that have been dark for a long time, but we still have to make sure it passes the sniff test. And we should not be making business decisions solely based on what the AI is telling us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more. And
Yeah.
I think interestingly, I think I saw it was Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google,
Yeah.
as talking about how in Silicon Valley they believe that in the next 5 years it's going to be we're going to have the general artificial intelligence, and that will be a he believe interestingly enough, that may be the what's going on in Silicon Valley. That may be their belief. I don't know. I mean, I'm not, obviously an AI engineer, um, but I don't know. I think it'd be very cool and exciting. But as it currently stands, we've got a really cool autocomplete, right? It's super
Yeah.
advanced autocomplete. It's phenomenal. Um, but to me, it's like understanding life, but we still haven't figured out consciousness, right? And we're saying that
Yeah.
somehow we're going to be able to, with just the bare elements, create life. I don't think that's true. I mean, or thinking
Yeah.
life. Like we're going to be able to recreate humans by designing our own DNA and making it happen. And they be like, nah, I think you're missing the whole consciousness thing. And I think that's where, the artificial, the general artificial intelligence kind of falls through. We're not seeing actual thinking yet, right? We're seeing auto
Yeah.
completion.
Right.
And that's a
That's right.
whole nother thing that we don't really fully understand how we think and how this happens. How are we going to reproduce it? Just like, by having it generate a bajillion trillion, maybe that's actually how we came to be and we don't understand it. So maybe that's what happens, right? It was this big human experiment, however it happened biologically by, spending billions of iterations. And then this just happened to maybe, maybe that could happen on the artificial side. But I'm curious, what are your thoughts on all that? Where do you land on this?
Yeah, so I certainly understand the kind of enhanced autocomplete idea, right? I get that, and I agree with you that AI today really isn't thinking, and too many people think that it is. AI is not thinking, but I do think that I would say it's a cut above kind of the enhanced autocomplete. I think there is a lot of value to AI looking at where it's really good is looking at huge amounts of data and pulling out, analyzing, pulling out the commonalities, pulling out the trends, things that would take a human being just a lot longer to do. Right. So
If you
AI
get
is
put.
very, very, yeah, that's right. AI is very, very good at that.
Yep.
And I do think that it can extract that information quickly, and it can extrapolate, and it can make some predictions. Here's what this data might mean. But again, it's only as good as the data going into it. And so if we had pristine data in all of our systems, then I would think, okay, maybe I could get on board with this, 5-year plan or 5-year roadmap that Eric Schmidt and others have. But the problem is we don't.
Yeah.
And even just the general AI models that are just going out and scouring the web, where they get most of their data from? Our study just came out like 2 or 3 weeks ago. It wasn't a study. Sorry, it was a report. Most of the data going into ChatGPT comes from Reddit.
I was going to say Reddit. Yeah.
Yeah. Most of it comes. So, it's only as good as the data going in. Would you base your business decisions based on researching Reddit?
No, it's, you know what? It's,
Right?
it's Reddit's so bad. There's some good stuff in there.
Yeah.
Occasionally
Yeah.
there are some people who do some great contributions it's very, insightful. It's great, very helpful, but most of it, not so much. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why if we're going to try to make business decisions, we have to make sure that our data.
Yeah.
I don't really care about, getting weather data is important to us. Weather data is pretty consistent. It's pretty reliable. So I don't mind that. Financial data, as far as, macroeconomics and all that, that's great. Bring that in, and the AI can analyze all that. But the value is looking at our data. I want to look at our sales. I want to know what these 5 stores in this geography have done.
Yep.
I want to know what they're doing differently than these 5 stores in this other geography that aren't doing as well as these. Those are the kind of analytics that I want. And that's all data that's in our systems.
Yeah.
So we have to make sure our data is clean and pristine.
Yep.
In order for AI to help us. And right now it's just not.
Yep.
Right.
No, 100%. So it will be interesting no matter what. It's going to be a fascinating ride. I mean, we're living in the future now, all right? I mean, cars are driving themselves. We have video conversations, on the phone, just walking down the street. It's the future that futurists dreamed of, decades ago. It's happening. Sure, the cars aren't flying, but they're driving themselves, and I'd much prefer that than a flying car any day. Cool idea,
sure.
But not for me. But anyway, Ken, I can't thank you enough for coming on today. This has been an absolute blast. But before we go, can you tell everybody where they can find out more about you and more about Win?
Yeah, you bet. So again, they won't find much about Win,
Cool.
but you look for Costa Vida Fresh Mexican Grill. Look for FatCats Fun, FatCats Entertainment, and they can find me on LinkedIn. And I'd love to connect with anyone if you want to learn more about tech debt, more about AI, more about data, whatever. I always love making connections and having conversations. And this has been an absolute blast. So thank you so much for having me on your show.
Of course. Until next time, Ken.
Hey, thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to the Cyber Business Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.